Hey folks, welcome to verifiedinvesting.com. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here. In today's video, we're going to deep dive into the chart of silver. Silver is hitting my upside target, just a stopping point based on forecasts for it to achieve a new all-time high, again, between 48 and 50 plus dollars. The question is, where or how high can silver go during this bull market cycle? Let's explore it. Now, before we do that, we're going to look at the near-term chart and kind of talk about the levels, but then we'll get into that long-term forecast. All right, so right into the chart we go. If you have been following me over the last couple weeks, we've been talking about the breakout here, the classic bull flag. And again, just looking back at the breakout, notice how this chart here, this trend line, was going back to 2022. Right? Basically December of 2022. And notice how every time it hit this line, it pulled back, pulled back, pulled back, pulled back over here. And then it finally gapped over that hard to get through level. So again, this is what I call a river theory. River theory basically means this is a raging river. And every time this chart came, it said, nope, I can't get through this. I'm going to drown. So in this way, it finds a bridge to get over via the gap, and it can continue on its merry way. Classic technical analysis there called the river theory that I created a long, long time ago. In any case, always a good sign when you see that. It means that it can continue on its path now that it's on the other side of the river. Now, it has come up to a little bit of resistance. This was the target that I gave last week of $44 per ounce. Now, why 44? Well, 44, if we go to the weekly chart, is a very key pivot point on its way towards all-time highs. And what we can see here on silver is that it is the high going back to August of 2011. Notice here again, we had this big pop in early 2011, making that all-time high at about $49 to $50. It then pulled back, and this was your secondary pivot high before the big drop came in. And so it makes a lot of sense that this would be its first big test on its way towards all-time highs. And again, that's at $44, give or take, per ounce of silver. Now, again, classic right there. That is the short-term target that I had given. We have now achieved it. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green days in a row green weeks in a row. So again, this tells me that it's starting to get tired. Now, you might say, well, why 6? Why does 6 weeks mean it's getting tired? And the answer is there's something in technical analysis called a time count. Time counts in general are sevens. And if you look at sevens tend to give you a pullback. So on the seventh candle, the odds of a pullback when you get 6 of one color in a row, and again, they're all decent size, which is what we have in silver, it tells us that there's a probability of a pause or a small pullback. Now, I still think silver is going to reach that $48 to $50 an ounce, maybe even going higher. But let's be fair, nothing generally goes vertical straight up forever, just like nothing usually falls straight down to zero forever. It usually has bounces along the way. So if we flip back to this chart, in general, what I'm anticipating on this chart is that we get a little bit of a check back over the next week or two like this, and then eventually we break to the upside and go even higher. Where would be that next target? It would basically be between $48 and $50 an ounce, which would bring us right back to those all-time highs from 2011, which, by the way, if we go to the monthly chart, take a look at this. It brings us all the way back to our 1980 highs as well. Really pretty amazing to think about this. Now, the question now becomes, right, so we've kind of gone over the near term. Near term, maybe a small pullback off this $44 level before further upside would be anticipated. The big question now, and I'm going to erase all my trend lines, we want to talk about upside forecast for the cycle, the bull cycle. Okay, so just playing catch up to gold, this is going to go a lot higher. Now, granted, gold is the purebred precious metal, right? Versus silver is a little bit on the industrial side, so forth. But in reality, silver can go a lot higher to even be in semi-parity with gold. I mean, and again, to do that, it's not worth me just speculating. We need to go to the charts. And so what we do here is we start looking at these charts and we say, okay, what would be that upside target? In general, what I like to do is I like to take the lowest point of a chart during a cycle move, and then you connect it to the low of the next cycle, somewhere in this vicinity. And then I love to use my parallels, and we kind of just take it one step at a time with that. So what we'll do is we'll take this low here and we'll connect it right through. Let's do this low here. Okay. All right. In fact, I think it should go here. Do you guys see why it should go here? Let me just put this line in, because if we look at this, and we could even just say, okay, well, it cuts through there, so we'll just go right to there. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. But the point being is that you have low to low to low, kisses here, pierces briefly right there, and pierces here, but then reestablishes right there. And so for me, this is where the science can become an art. Like you could do it from here to here, we could do it up to here. The question is at what point. I would think the best trend line to use is this one because it makes the most sense. Yes, during key bear market phases like September, October of 2018, this was the COVID collapse. Needless to say, even oil. Remember, oil went negative during the COVID collapse. That current contract went into the negative money. So you have these outliers of massive panic where things come in. But in essence, going back to 2003, this is a great trend line. And again, just to show us and go through this, you have low, 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 and low right here. And then you have a little pierce up, and then the flush on COVID, and then it reestablishes itself right there. And so for me, anyways, as a technician with my skills of how many years I've been doing trendline analysis, this would be the one that makes the most sense, which is always the one you want to use. All right. Now, having said that, we want to find out, okay, well, where would be our first level? Now, the first thing that catches my eye, and this is really important, guys. Okay. So, and again, I always try to bring the alpha in my A game and education. Education is, you can't underestimate the education, right? That is so important for us all. So when you're doing a parallel, it's really important to make sure the parallel makes sense, not only because of the line I drew, but then confirming that that line is significant. Now, how do you confirm that line is significant? Look at this. Look at how when I drag the parallel up from here, look at this. See that? So now on my way to using this parallel to project out to this high, I'm going to bring the parallel up to this high, and that's going to give us that upside cycle target. All right, at least one cycle target. Let's be fair. It may not be the ultimate cycle target, but it would be kind of our next targeted move. What we want to see is that it makes sense. The trend line that we drew originally makes sense via other levels. And if we look at this, guys. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Right? So notice how the parallel now makes even more sense that we started the line at because it coordinates with another level on the charts. And then if we drag this up, all right, look at this. Ooh, look at this. The 44 level, which is the level here that we just talked about as being resistance. Look, right to there, here, and here. And even the lows in here. That is so cool. So cool. All right. So having said that, we now drag this all the way up. And this would be your next move up. Now, again, is this going to be the ultimate high of this cycle? I honestly don't know, but this would be massive resistance, $60 an ounce. And this honestly could be just this move up. And what I would basically tell you is that silver could go from here, which by the way is almost a 50% move from current levels. Silver could rally all the way up to $60 here. That is not outlandish to think. And even at that $60, the only thing that makes me think it could be a cycle high, and listen, again, please understand, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are emotionally invested in silver. I get that. Silver is like the beaten down. I mean, let's be fair, it's gold's ugly stepchild, whatever it is, you want to call it. But the point being is that this run here would then be replicated here if it achieves that. And at least we would see some sort of bigger pullback, I would think, off of that level. And remember, the analysis, number one, there's nothing perfect in technical analysis. It's a probability-based game, but it also needs to make sense. And this makes sense. All right. So again, I'm looking for $60 in this. Let's say I even think potentially by late this year, early next year, we could be at 60 on silver. And then we have to start saying, okay, now we should see a significant pullback. Maybe after that pullback, we'll go a lot higher and we can always do evaluations on that. But in the very least, this makes a lot of sense per chart analysis of where we're headed here into this end year into early 2026. And again, just to go over this, the beauty of it is incredible because we're using a trend line that we confirm is valid by all of these other points here. And then even up to the current highs, which we know we could get a small pullback based on short-term analysis. And then all the way up here, this again, right up to $60, give or take, maybe a little bit above 60. That would be my forecast of where silver will go in the near term into the midterm over basically end of year, early 2026, I think $60 has a real chance of being seen. So for those of you that love silver, that's a great move. For those of you that are in love with silver, it may not be enough, but that's what the charts are telling me. That's where the charts are telling me that we're going to run into some significant resistance if we get up to that level. And needless to say, in the near term, 44, we very well could pause, have a small pullback consolidation. 48 to 50, you got to assume the previous all-time high. That'll be a consolidation, small pullback area too. Then the question is, we get our final push, which will get all the bulls on board. People will go nuts over silver, and that's usually where things top out more significantly. That takes us to 60, and then we'll get a significant longer-term pullback. All right, guys, there's the analysis. Thank you so much for tuning in. Come join us at verifiedinvesting.com. All charts, no BS. Have a good one. Take care.